Hello, this presentation is by Lainey, Piper, Angelica, and Kelly. We are looking at concerned citizens for online opposition to wind.
Wind energy. What is it? Wind energy is the process of generating electricity using wind or natural airflow from Earth's atmosphere. It is a clean fuel source. It does not rely on fossil fuels, and it does not produce emissions that can cause acid rain or greenhouse gases. The turbines can be built on land or offshore in waters like lakes and oceans. These projects encourage jobs, sustainable practices, cheaper long-term costs, and so much more. As of today, wind energy is the cheapest renewable form of electricity generation. Wind energy reduces our dependency on fossil fuels. Its developed technology has reduced its upfront costs over the years, and they look like giant fans in the sky. We learned about this in class, but some of us may have already been exposed to this beforehand. Why might people have an issue with this specific energy?
With these two maps, we can see where wind turbines are at today. On the left, we see that they're mostly concentrated in the Midwest throughout the Great Plains and a little bit more on the East Coast. And then the photo on the right shows current wind farms in Michigan. Most of them are in the thumb. I was curious to know where my town stood on the issue of wind, so I polled the citizens of my town's Facebook group and asked them if they would be in favor of more wind farms in Michigan. 152 of them said yes, 33 said no, and 10 said yes, but not in my town. Of course, I took to Twitter to see what my followers would think, though they're pretty liberal and most of them are quite young. And about 3 of them said no, and the remainder of them said yes, and that was about out of 42 people. The question gained a lot of attention on the page. A lot of people said no because the blades can't be recycled and they're piling up in landfills. Some people said that they were worried about the birds and that it hurts the birds. One guy said dig coal and burn the hell out of it. And there was one guy who said he worked with wind, so that was pretty cool. One lady said that wind isn't sustainable or economically viable without subsidization. One guy said nuclear is the best option. And the best answer, I think, one guy said we will get cancer.
There are many people opposed to wind power, and their main concerns are property values, their agricultural and rural lands, the carbon debt and footprint that comes with building these wind projects, the aesthetic landscape, the efficiency and increased electricity rates, the general distrust of the government, the height, the TV, radio, and cellular disruption, the shadow flicker, the setbacks, the noise, the health concerns, and life with the turbines in general. We are at a time where these sustainable practices and projects are fairly new, and people are scared of these new practices disturbing their everyday life. It is hard for people raised on non-renewable energy to transition and to trust renewable energy because non-renewable is all they know. And can we really blame them for being scared and opposing this wind energy?
While gathering intel on just how widespread wind energy opposition is, we discovered many anti-wind action groups can be found online from regions around the globe. In the United States, New York has the most opposition at 52 anti-wind groups. Michigan has only 10 such groups in comparison. In Europe, the United Kingdom has the most opposition with 94 anti-wind groups in the country. And according to the Pew Research Center, 14% of American adults oppose building wind turbine farms. While investigating some of the concerned citizens' websites, one we particularly found interesting is the Save Our Sherman group. Save Our Sherman is a group of concerned residents in Sherman Township, Michigan, that volunteer in educating the local community of the harmful effects of wind turbines. Their opposition is strongly evident on this website through the use of many passionate words. The Save Our Sherman group tells the intriguing story of government abuse of power, financial scandal, and dangerous turbines. We highly recommend checking out their site if you would like to get a deeper look into the thought process of this anti-wind group.
This Facebook group is called Friends of the Huron Mountains No Wind Farms, as the appearance of wind turbines is often cited as a concern for people. This news station shot further proves their point. Cameras are roughly 35 miles away in Ohio, and they can see the wind turbines in Canada. This post on the right is stating that S-Power, a renewable energy company, will not refile their application, which means a proposed 77 wind turbine park will not be built. Wade says that the smart money is going offshore because of higher efficiencies and profits. Good for you, Wade. Next, we have concerned citizens of Delta County. On the left here, we have a picture of an old wind turbine saying, "Not a mill, not a farm, it's not clean. Keep big wind and their big spinning lies out of our fresh water." And that came from Concerned Citizens Against Wind Turbines in Lake Erie. The post on the right shows that energy company Nix's planned wind farm east of Muskegon. John says that there is a 10 to 40% drop in property values. He speaks of decommissioning worries, which is also a big topic that people widespread in these groups are concerned about, is decommissioning and what to do after these turbines are no longer usable. This graphic on the left is a popular image shown across these groups. It shows the process of construction, transportation, operation, and disassembly of the wind turbines and what goes along with that. The conclusion states that wind energy is beneficial in both energy consumption and minimalized waste. The graphic is pretty blurry, so it's difficult to read. But again, in the comments, people are worried about decommissioning, which we have seen in class is an issue. And they are worried about the materials needed to make it, as well as water use. On the right is a bunch of old turbines once they've been decommissioned, and they're just sitting, waiting for something to be done with them, though nobody's really figured out what to do with these old wind turbines yet. Here are some fun cartoons I found. The one on the left says, "That crushing moment when you realize if the planet has healed itself in 3 weeks, then there is no climate crisis, no environmental emergency, and no mitigation required. And the billions wasted on wind turbines and policies should have been spent on better healthcare and being prepared for the next pandemic." Although, with something like coronavirus, where it's so detrimental to your respiratory system, you would think that people would want more wind turbines, considering they don't emit anything, but to each their own. On the right, we have the bird concern. A lot of people concerned about these birds, even though we've talked about in class that more domestic animals kill birds each year than wind turbines. And so they're saying either it gets suffocated by emissions or it gets head cut off by a wind turbine. Now, to address some of these Facebook comments, a lot of people say that we will never have enough power by wind alone, and we would need to use fuels to make up for that power. But according to this graph from the International Energy Agency, the United States electricity demand as of 2018 is about 4,000 terawatt hours, and our offshore wind potential alone is 8,000 terawatt hours, so we would have plenty of power to go around. Next, we have worries about land use. According to a study from Strata, wind does look pretty guilty, with roughly 71 acres used per megawatt of power produced, while coal has as little as about 12. But we must look at how this land is used, and wind does not require major land disturbance. An article from the Union of Concerned Scientists does mention that the surrounding land near windmills can still be used for livestock grazing, agriculture, and hiking trails. This article also mentions that these turbines could be placed on abandoned or underused industrial land. When we look at natural gas and coal, we see the devastating, lasting impacts it has on the land, the wildlife, the water around it, and everything like that. And with these wind turbines, they really don't create that big of a disturbance. There is also an article from the Energy News Network that said that between 2000 and 2012, about 7 million acres was given over to well pads and related roads in mining alone. And that was for drilling for oil and gas. A lot of people in these wind opposition groups are also opposed to solar. One group said that the energy input is greater than the output for solar, and as we have talked about in class, this is untrue of the EROI of solar. And while it is low, it is still above the economic threshold in solar CSP. Another thing people have a lot of concerns and issues with is how much subsidies that wind is getting. However, from 1950 to 2010, 70% of all energy subsidies went to fossil fuels, with less than 10% going to renewables, according to the Nuclear Energy Institute. And I was doing some researching, and in Europe, Spain has been doing really well with renewables to the point where they don't even need subsidies anymore. And with renewables such as wind and solar getting cheaper and cheaper, my guess is they're going to become less dependent on these subsidies as time goes on. I would also like to mention that they were not complaining about the big oil bailouts surrounding coronavirus and the price of oil these days, but they did have a lot to say when people were trying to put renewables in the stimulus packages.